Good morning. All right, so a couple things to start off with. All right, we got to talk about Mark. All right, so it's kind of nice being on this side of it because he comes up, says what he says, and then I can rebuttal, but he doesn't have a chance to come back. So first off, he didn't, that the beginning of our relationship wasn't quite like that. It was, hey, Bobby, you're doing the announcements now, so I want to get that clear. But also, it has been great just to be able to come up and talk a little bit. I think that's kind of, once I got to a certain level, now they're like, hey, now it's time for you to preach. Once I could get through that beginning part without speeding through my words as much. And thank you for your patience as I learned how to, public speak again. Because I've public speak before, whether you believe it or not, and I enjoy it. But sometimes you just get a little confuzzled, right, as you're getting ready to say stuff. So that being said, thanks so much to everyone here for your patience through my beginning here. I've loved being the youth director here it's been about 9 months now. Sarah and I were counting the other day, and sometimes it feels like that's been really quick, and sometimes some of you might think he's been here 9 whole months. That's crazy. So hopefully it's gone fast for you as well. I just wanted to say thank you to this congregation. It has been amazing to be part of your community here. You've been accepting, and I'm excited about where we're going, about what the vision that we have, that we talk about in our staff meetings, and just all the things we're doing here at Union Church. It's really exciting. And hey, I'm supposed to preach today, so that just turned on. So, yeah. Okay, so Rick comes up here, and I don't know if you noticed, but he always sets his cell phone down, but then you can't see it. So he could be like playing, Angry Birds or whatever up here, but we don't know because there's not a clock in here. So I think that's also why he sometimes gets a little he's just long-winded sometimes, so we'll blame that on it. All right, so back to thanking you guys for being part of this community. I just want to say, through all the mess ups and through everything that I've been through and the vision I have, and I'm able to share that, the youth have been patient and awesome. The youth leaders have been working with me. And even like Camille and Wendy and Gretchen, throwing stuff in the bulletin last minute. Camille, I come up to sometimes. I'm like, hey, how do I do this event? And she's like, that's tomorrow. And I'm like, I know. So just helping with those last minute tweakings and things like that. So it's been great, and the support in the community has been awesome. So, good first 9 months, and I'm excited for all we're going to do from here on. So, when Rick at first asked me to preach, I was really excited because he comes up to me and he says, all right, it's your turn to preach. And I'm like, sweet, excitement. And then he tells me I'm preaching on peace. And I'm even more excited because the word peace has so many meanings. I mean, I just love it. It can mean, having peace in certain situations, having a peaceful heart, there's so many ways that peace can mean. And you have the word love, right? Everybody knows that, or at least if you don't, hey, love has different meanings as well. There's, a lot of people look at the Greek words of it, and you can see the different meanings and how that works together and how they exemplify different aspects of love. Well, peace has the same thing. There are 11 words in the Old Testament that mean peace. Now, some of them are more common and easy, like you've possibly heard the word shalom, it's like a greeting of peace and peace be with you. Then there's also peace, funny words, right? So then there's the greeting of daimim, which is like a quiet, still peace, like that restful peace and quiet. And then there's my favorite, which is charash, which can mean like a saying your piece, like you're upset, you're going to say your piece, your words, say what you have to say. Or it could mean plowing a field. So it kind of, words are funny like that. They can take on different meanings depending on the context. And so I just really like that aspect of the word peace. It has so much that it can mean. And what I can talk about today, and I'm so excited, I can go all over the board, and I'm really excited. Then about a week later, he comes to me. So Rick comes to me and says, all right, let's talk about your sermon. It's the first part of a series on peace that I'm going to do. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he tells me all the parts that he's going to talk about. And I was like, well, I had all this grand idea of what to talk about peace. And then he's like, you're talking about God is peace. And I'm like, well, that's great. But the words and all this meaning and all these other things of peace, because it fits in with like the fruits of the Spirit, right? You can have, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, all those things work together. Because if you're in a traffic jam, right? If you don't don't have peace about the situation, then it's a lot harder to have self-control and the patience, and especially when you get cut off, like you can have that peace, right? And so I wanted to talk about those things and all that. And then he kind of narrows it down for me to God is peace. And I'm like, well, those don't fit in all those cool things I wanted to talk about. And so I quickly realized that both this is, this narrows what I'm talking about for me, but also means those other topics are off limits, right? So I can't talk about what he's going to talk next week because, that's not so good. You guys might get bored. So hearing the same thing week after week for a few weeks. So I say all this to say two things. First, God is peace. That's what we're going to be talking about today. I want to kind of get you guys ready for that. The second is come back in the next few weeks because the word of peace and what it can mean to us and the different relationships peace have is amazing. So please come back in the next few weeks and hear about all that Rick has to share. All right. So that was my intro. All right, my chance to come up here, take a couple minutes, see how well I'm doing, if I'm talking too fast, if I need to catch my breath, realize if I'm saying too many times or all right, or apparently I have a catchphrase of hey, so if you've heard that, I didn't realize it, but Sarah's called me out on it a few times. As well as Camille loves it. Like when I see somebody in the back of the church and I'll be like, hey, and she's like, hey, there's a catchphrase. I'm like, all right. So, but now for the good stuff, all right? Oh, I got this. I got to click, right? All right. Romans 16:20, all right? This verse, perfect verse, right? The God of peace. We're good, right? The God of peace. Romans, it says it right there. Paul talked to the Romans and he tells them, the God of peace. We're done, right? That's like 10-minute sermon, if that. Like, we're good. You guys all understand God is peace, right? We understand the component here, so pretty easy. All right. Well, you see that part that says Romans 16:20a? Well, that means there's a Romans 16:20b. And that gets a little bit more complicated, all right? And so we're going to, that's one of my words, all right. So, caught it, work on it. All right. So, Romans 16:20b has a lot bigger meaning. It changes this dynamic. This is easy to understand, right? This is like little kid math, okay? You get 2 + 2, 4. Great. We got that understand. We can all understand 2 + 2 is 4. But now we're going to go up to like trigonometry math. All right. So we don't want that. We do want that, but it's hard. It's confusing. And sometimes we don't want that. But we're going to go there because I need to teach you guys more than just God is peace. So here we go. Romans 16:20a plus 16:20b. The God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet. So this God of peace, if you have that idea of peace as, valleys and rivers and happiness, walking in the garden with God, when he picks you up on the sand, right, in the poem, all those things that God can be, all those peaceful thoughts we thought are kind of thrown under the bus here because God of peace will soon crush Satan. He won't just talk to him. He won't be like, no, you can't do that. He won't discipline him, trying to guide him the right way. He will crush Satan. All right? It's not that relative that comes over for the holidays. You just got to get like, okay, we're going to get through the holidays. Then we can talk and be better. All right? He's going to crush Satan. That's a little daunting to me because we have this God of peace and this image of what peace is like. But then we have crushing Satan. All right? So God is complicated. And I know I'm talking about the God of peace, but we need to lay some groundwork. So one of my favorite things about Christianity is the foundations, right? If you have a great foundation for your faith, you can just build on it, right? You understand the Bible. Our Sunday school class is talking, we're adults and we're going through the books of the Bible, all right? It's great. It's fun. I mean, just thinking through, there's a little hand thing we have and little rhymes, and we don't know the song yet. At least no one's saying it. I don't think anybody wants to sing it out loud in front of everybody. But we'll possibly today, somebody will get the courage to sing it. But God is complicated, and there's these layers. And my favorite foundational layer is from 1 Corinthians 13. All right? For God is not a God of disorder, but of peace. Oh, I skipped a section. Just kidding. All right. Let me see. Oh, yep, there it is. All right. For we know in part. Yeah, there it is. All right. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. So this is the foundation layer that we don't understand all of who God is. We are like infants. We are children trying to figure out this big, expansive thing that this creator God, this, vengeful God, this peaceful God, all those things put together are really confusing. And we can't even understand them until completeness comes, right? Until we actually get face to face with God. Then we'll be like, oh, that makes so much more sense now. That's why all this craziness happened, right? Because we can see God's working, right? And if you trust God, we can see that God is working his will and his ways out through our lives. But at the same time, it's really confusing and it's really hard to see sometimes. And so that's the goal here, all right? Just that layer, that's what we're going with, is that God is confusing, but that's okay because he's God. He's that expansive God, and we're little kids, right? We got the 2 + 2 is 4. Yeah, we got it. I know that. All right, God's doing trigonometry and all sorts of, equations that probably there's bigger math terms in trigonometry that I don't even know because there's probably like quantum physics. Is that a thing, right? Yeah. All right. So there's really confusing math out there that we don't understand. So in the Old Testament then, which I think is where we're going next. Is that where we're going next? Yeah, the Old Testament. All right. We see another part of God. So this God of peace, right? So there's a God of peace that is also going to crush Satan. All right. So in Exodus, they sing a song. All right. Right after they get pulled out of Egypt and they go and the Egyptians get swallowed up by the Red Sea. And so we have this song that they sing in Exodus. I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Nice. Nice and easy. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea. Not quite that peaceful God, right? Not that image of peaceful God. He is my God, or the Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. He is my God, and I will praise him. My Father's God, I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his armies he has hurled into the sea. The best of Pharaoh's officers are drowned in the Red Sea. The deep waters have covered them. They sink to the depths like a stone. Your right hand, Lord, was majestic in power. Your right hand, Lord, shattered the enemy. Isn't that like a happy song? Like, you're all jumping around singing. Yeah, it doesn't quite feel the right way. And then the women, like later on in the chapter, the women come back with the kids and they sing that first verse again. They're like, sing to the Lord. He is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea. Do you think Camille would maybe like that as a VBS song this summer? I'm thinking like we can make puppets out of like really cheap paper, of like the horse and the chariots and stuff. And then we can throw them into water and then they just dissolve, right? That'll be great. It'll be and then you have kids crying. It wouldn't probably be good. All right. So we don't want that. All right. But did you notice in verse 2? It says, the Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. So God wasn't doing this just because, right? He wasn't doing it just to make a point like, I'm strong enough. I can crush people. I can, take this water and rivers and part them, and then I can just crush these people whenever I want. That wasn't what he was trying to get at here. It wasn't a show of his power, of his force, or anything like that. He wasn't just excited to like, hey, I'm going to, take these Egyptians with my magnifying glass, and treat them like ants, right? If you ever did that as a kid. So hopefully not, right? Bad. But God's not doing that to us mere mortals, right? He is using this to prove a point, to do something, to make his plan work, to get peace. All right, let's jump over to 1 Samuel 17. All right, so this is a little bit different take as well. So this is David and Goliath. So this is a Bible story that you might be familiar with, and we do talk about, although we kind of clean it up a little bit. David said to the Philistine, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defiled. So here David is standing up, and he's saying, hey, you're going against God, and you're trying to fight God. So I'm going to stand up and say, God is with me. You're against me. So I'm going to fight for you, fight for God. And God gave him it's this little guy, and he comes up with a sling and just whoosh. All right, knocks David over. All right, David 1, Goliath 0, right? Just that easy. And then if you read, if you've read that actual chapter before, it gets a little more gruesome after that. He doesn't just say, yeah, I win. All right. They chase the Philistines. There's, crazy carnage going on. But this is God taking David, his, man after God's own heart, and taking him and killing someone. All right. Defending God's plan. And so that's where we want to go with. All right. So God is a God of peace, but he can be the warrior God. Right? He can defend his people. He can defend his plan. He has his ways that he needs to work in order for his plan to go. Right? So these are examples of what you could call conflict resolution, right? Or aggressive negotiations of a type. Right? So you can take those and see how God is working out through all them all. All right? And so there are times when for peace, there needs to be those conflict resolutions. And that is where the other side of God, the warrior God, comes out. It's kind of like a mama bear, right, protecting its young, right? If you try and go, oh, look, a cute little bear, that's not going to end well for you when mama bear comes out, right? So you're going to be like, hey, look, my cute little face is over there, all right? So you don't want that so much, all right? Because mama bear is going to pounce, all right? So you got to be very careful with what you do. And that's the same with God. He cares about us so much that he wants us to be at peace. He wants his goodness to be in our lives and be flowing throughout our lives. So God is a God of peace. Oh, let me back up. So it's kind of like the mama bear protecting. God crushes Satan, all right, because he caused the flood. He destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. But those are examples of where peace is maintained through fixing the problem, right? Because God sometimes has to fix the problem. He even subdued Satan, and who will not stop unless he takes over, right? So God couldn't just say, hey, Satan, let's talk about this. Let's explain this. Satan wants to take over, and the only thing God could do is crush him. That's the only thing he had. That's the only choice he had to make sure that we have peace. So God is a God of peace. He does it by making peace. He's not out for blood or just to be spiteful, but there are times when you have to stand up for what is right. And I'm glad it's not up to me, right? Because we talked earlier, God, infinite wisdom, smart. I think of Aladdin, the genie, phenomenal cosmic power, but he doesn't have the EDB living space, all right? So he just has that phenomenal cosmic power. God of everything, right? He's smart. My brain, not so smart. So if it was up to me, things would probably go pretty badly pretty quick, right? I don't understand the workings of the world and how peace really comes from anything, because our world is very confusing and there are hard things all around us that don't seem to be very peaceful. But that's where we get to try and trust God and realize it's not in our control. Because as a kid, I tried to control things, right? So I tried to, decide, all right, this is what we're going to do today. And I would tell my family, here I am 10 years old or so. And I told my family, all right, this is the plan. We're going to go to the grocery store. Then we're going to go to the bank. Then we're going to go here. And then while we're at the grocery store, you're going to get the milk. You're going to get the eggs. And I'm going to get the candy. All right. And then we can all meet up at the front. All right. So it wasn't that I was in charge and I had to get my way, or else I just complained or whined or screamed. But I had my way of understanding what the day was going to look like, and I wanted it to work out a certain way. Now, a weird thing happened. Enough of the times that actually worked well, that my parents decided that this little guy's kind of got some things going on, and they encouraged me. They actually wanted me to be a lawyer, which was kind of weird, especially thinking back on where I've gone now. That wouldn't have gone well. But could you imagine this, standing in front of a judge when you're on trial? Yeah, you probably don't mean. Yeah, not a good idea, right? Can I get another? Okay, so, but we had a joke. That from that, we started joking around and being silly, because my family would like to be silly. And about junior high, we came up with the idea that, I think it was my sister who started this, that I was going to be the future dictator of the world. All right? That was just the weirdness of me planning everything and just trying to get it going. And we even made a plan, right? Because you start in Cuba, right? Because they're close by and they are already used to the dictator thing. And then I can just grow from there, right? It'll work. Okay, not a good idea. Okay, I cannot be in charge of country, of anything. I joke with Sarah sometimes because in high school I had this weird thought that I should be president someday. All right, it's been something, and I've shared it with her a few times, and she's like, no, you can't. That'd be awful. And I'm like, well, thanks for your support, honey. That's great. You know? But then she tells me, like, you can't fix everything, and you'll want to try. And that's like where I'm at. I want good. I want peace. I want happiness for everyone around me, but the world doesn't work that way. And so that's where my understanding is like here, and God's understanding is here, right? So we don't want that. We don't want me in charge. Everyone here wants God in charge. All right, that's the goal, right? So let me jump over here. So what do? We trust God. So this is another layer. And this is kind of a hard verse to read. I know I grabbed this, so you got you guys all looking up there. But I'm going to preface this. This is another hard verse to read that's kind of confusing, easy to brush over, and like, that's for somebody else, that's not for me. And, you know, that's the special circumstances, or they talked at the time about that, but that's not a thing for us. But I think it does have meaning for each of us. Okay, so we're going to look at Luke 14. And click, perfect. All right. Luke 14, 25 to 27. Many people were traveling with Jesus. That's easy, right? We can travel with Jesus. Yay. He said to them, if you come to me but will not leave your family, you cannot be my follower. You must love me more than your father, mother, wife, children, brothers, and sisters, even more than your own life. Whoever will not carry the cross that is given to them when they follow me cannot be my follower. So here Jesus is telling us, if you don't love me, and like I've even heard it, there's another translation that says, if you don't love me and hate your family, you are not my follower. And that's a hard pill to swallow, right? I like my family. I'm excited because Sarah and I are getting married in September, and I'm excited to make a family. We're looking for a house, and just all that excitement that is, and I just want to, yes, excitement, right? Because that's what I see as the best good, as the most peace, the most awesomeness of my life can be, right? A family, some people that are just, you live with, that just care about you and support you. It's going to be so great, right? And I'm sure you guys have great families too, and sometimes it's that, you know, you don't, but you still care, all right? So I was getting ready this morning, and my nephew got sick, all right? He has a baseball game, and he's like throwing up, and then all of a sudden he's in the bathroom, and he's brushing his teeth, and I'm like, I got to go, and I couldn't get in, so I wasn't too happy with him at that point. But, you know, there are times where I love hanging out with my nephew and my whole family. It's great, but there also are frustrating times. But we're not talking about the frustrating times even. We're talking about when it's great, when our families are going perfect and everything's going well and you have such support and it's awesome and, you know, family la land, right? Like, yay, this is great. We are told by God, by Jesus here, that if we don't care more about Jesus than that happy family, then we're doing something wrong. And it's not that he's trying to put down our families, because he realizes how important that is. But he's trying to raise up how important God is in our lives, right? Now, this isn't meaning for us to finally get to tell our family members what we've been thinking of them, but it's perspective that Jesus is trying to give. He's telling us to trust God with our family, right? We want to trust him with that, because if he calls us to leave our family, and that's, you know, a calling that some people have. I've left my family and went to, you know, I did summer mission trips. I lived in Michigan for a while. I've lived a lot of crazy places and had a lot of crazy jobs. Sarah's still finding out jobs, and she's like, you were a garbage man? I'm like, it was a summer, and it was this. So, you know, lots of weird jobs, but that's where God has taken me. And I've followed him as best I can. And my family, it's been great because they have been supportive of me for that. But I know that God is going to take care of my family while I'm away from them. And I know that God's going to take care of me while I'm away from them if I'm following his plan. Now, it doesn't mean everything's going to be happy, right? I didn't go to Michigan and like win the lottery, right? I went to Michigan and worked at a camp and struggled and had, you know, some hard times. But that's where God wanted me to be. And so I followed his plan, which seemed chaotic and not very peaceful. But through that, I was able to see his plan, and I was able to come out the other side trusting in him and trusting his plan for peace for me and for my family and my future family too. So we just didn't have, or sometimes it's hard to get that perspective. It's like a little child, right? So you get a toy, right? Get a little kid a toy. They're like, this is the best thing ever, right? they're playing with this toy, they're having excitement, they just love playing with the toy, and all of a sudden you try and take the toy away because you're going to the store. They don't want to give up the toy. They want that toy. They want to take this toy to the store with them. They want to take it everywhere. Now, sometimes that works, but sometimes you don't want them to take the toy because they might lose the toy or they might break the toy. There's lots of reasons to not have them do that. And we know that as adults. You need to leave your toys here so you don't lose it. Or maybe you need to leave that toy because there's a better toy, right? I can think of I can't think of any of the high school students who would hey, no, Mom and Dad, I don't need that new car. I got my tricycle. I'm good, right? It's that perspective. We're caring about a tricycle when God's trying to give us a new car. So it's that perspective that we care about our family, and which is great, and we should do that. But we need to realize what all God has for us and his peace, his understanding of the world, and trust that what he has is better than what we can figure out on our own. All right, so we read that one. All right, so God is smart. He is a God of peace. We can't fully understand him, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. God is complicated, but God is peace. So now what does that mean for us? Genesis 2 says we are made in the image of God, right? So we are, in part at least, peace. That's our job. We are peace. So here's our last layer of how we are peace. Micah 6:8. This is an amazing verse. A lot of people use it for different social justice things. It just, one of those verses you just tear apart, and it just means so much more the more you look at it. He has shown you, or mortal, that's us, we're the mortals, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. So the Lord requires of you, O mortal. So he's shown us what is good. He has shown us his plan. He has shown us what he does to make peace, right? Because sometimes it is happiness, in the garden, yay, let's have peace. And sometimes it is warrior God. And that's where it kind of gets funny, all right? Because we want to be like God. And so sometimes we get to skip in the valley and have fun, but sometimes we need to stand up for what is right. And so this is telling us to act justly and to love mercy and walk humbly with your God. So this is what he wants from us and what he expects of us even. When we are thinking of acting against something or, thinking of our own actions, and we see something happen, we need to ask ourselves, if we think God would think I am acting justly, right? That's when we're deciding what to do in a situation. Am I acting justly in this situation? Am I loving mercy in this situation? Am I making sure, am I overbearing, somebody? Or am I just, being humble and saying, this can't happen, I need to stand up against it? Or is it like, yes, I get to fight somebody? We don't want that either, all right? And then lastly, am I walking humbly with God, right? Trying to limit our understanding, because we do have finite minds, but we limit our understanding and give that over to God. Even our own, don't do that. All right, giving our understanding to God, letting him take the wheel, right? Take our understanding, drive where we're going to go. One of my favorite authors, this little book, all right, that's why I like it so much. This is big, all right? It's a guy named Frank Laubach. He was a missionary somewhere, and he just started writing down. His goal was to pray every moment of the day. Every decision he made, he wanted God in that decision. He's even on his typewriter writing out his journal. And at one point, he even, gets really into it. He's like, I'm even praying that God would type, this next word for me. Was his goal. He called it the game of minutes, because every minute, that was his challenge, that every minute of the day, he wanted God in his decision. And if we had that would help us turn things over to God so he would work out his peace in our lives. Right? We would trust him with that. So I have one more example of God's warrior side, where there was bloodshed and a rather gruesome death that he planned out. But this death served a much bigger purpose. It brought peace, right? Through a death, God brought peace. God didn't think of himself when he was deciding to do this. He wasn't thinking like, all right, how can I make everything around me make me feel all warm and cuddly? All right, he wasn't planning that. He was planning, what do I need to do in order to take this mankind and restore them to me? And he did that by sending his own son, right? So that kind of changes that Luke verse When we talk about how we're supposed to leave our family, Jesus did that. He left God, right? Not just our family, but he left God on top of that. He left heaven, that, joyous, that peace all around him. He left that to come to us. That'd be a hard step, leaving your family. And then he went through a life that just had trial after trial of hard thing after hard thing, and ending in his death on a cross for doing nothing, right? So here, Jesus is laying his life down, and God kind of orchestrated it to kill Jesus, his own son. I can't imagine that. I mean, Sarah and I aren't married. We don't have kids yet. But those of you who have even family members, you know how important your kids are to you. And I can't even imagine Abraham when he was getting ready to possibly, God told him to kill his own son. I'm like, no, I can't do that. That is trusting God above all of our own understanding. That is just mind-blowing that he can do that Abraham could do that. And then God backs it up and says, look what I can do for you. He does so much more in the world and all around us that we can't imagine, that we can't understand, but that's his plan. That's what he has worked out for us, right? But that's who God is. He is the God of peace. He will do whatever it takes to maintain that peace. And although we don't understand it, we can still follow it. Philippians 4:7, I'm not sure if I added this. Yep, I added this later, so we'll just put that up there. All right. Philippians 4:7 says, the peace that passes all understanding. Now that's a song, right? That's a song if you grew up in the church, and Sarah and I were trying to remember the words and sing it the other day. But, it's a peace that passes understanding down in my heart. Where? All right, so it's a great song, but it is such a thing. The peace that passes all understanding. That's our goal, that God has that peace, and we want to try and get towards that peace. We want to deny ourselves in a way, take up our cross, and realize that what God has for us is way better than the turmoil that we expect, than the craziness of this life. We seek him and what he has for us. Then we get that peace that passes all understanding, that in all situations we can understand and be like, God's got it. God's in control. I don't need to work and do all these things to try and get peace in my life and to make things work out the way I think they should work out. I'm going to let God lead. And I'm going to do things because God sometimes calls us to do things, right? We need to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. That is our goal. So that's my two things for you guys. So first off, God is peace, and we need to trust God with that peace and seek him out. So that's my hope for us. So that is what I have for us today. So I hope you guys enjoyed my first sermon, that, I didn't take over too much. I didn't even use the stool. I thought maybe I'd try and sit down, but it just seemed too much like a JCPenney photography, come get Sarah to sit there and all prom, yay. All right. So that didn't quite work, but, I do enjoy just trying things and just having fun. And I'm excited for what God has done through this with me this week. So let's pray, and then we are going to, it's Communion Sunday, so another first for me is that I get to share communion with you guys today, and so we'll pray, and then we'll start communion, and we'll have that time. So God, I just thank you for this opportunity, for this church body, that we can come before you and just learn who you are, that you would continue to humble us and help us to understand you are infinitely smarter and wiser and everything that we can ever imagine. But that hopefully give us the strength to not stop there, to not just be lost in your vastness, Father, that you would give us ways that we could grow in your knowledge and help us to seek you out wholeheartedly and to trust you with your peace, and that your plan is working in our lives, Father. I just thank you for this time today. I ask that you be with us as we step into a time of communion, that our hearts and minds would be open to what you would have to talk to us about, and that you would speak through us through that act. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.